Hey guys.
Very disturbing to hear these things or to kind of see some of the receipts that appear to be connected.
The most spectacular and tumultuous political race in recent memory is about to begin. As the November election approaches and her campaign has fallen into utter chaos, Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed supermayor of Dunn, Illinois, is fine to continue in her role. Once a powerful figure, Henyard is now in the midst of a full-blown crisis, with her approval rating falling to a pitiful single-digit percentage, an FBI investigation, a potentially disastrous eviction lawsuit, and mounting indignation from the very residents who once supported her. Her leadership, which was previously hailed as powerful and decisive, has now been shown as a flimsy facade, forcing her to fight for her life. One of the most notorious events during her term was the yearly turkey distribution held right before Thanksgiving, which was widely denounced as a desperate and unscrupulous attempt to divert attention from the township's terrible financial circumstances. The turkey giveaway, which was meant to show Henyard as a kind leader, instead came off as a flimsy political ploy that only made the public's dislike of her worse. However, this is only the beginning of her. Backdoor deals, dishonest methods, and increasingly weird stunts are all part of the troubled Henyard re-election campaign, which is being closely watched by local politicians and activists. The attempt by Christopher Gonzalez Henyard to force important decisions through without adhering to the correct protocols has been made public. It's evident from Gonzalez's revelations that Henyard's leadership is now more desperate as she tries to exert authority more and more, even going so far as to bend the laws to her will. About maintaining power rather than serving the people, every move appears to be more intended to maintain public attention than to deal with the town's actual problems. Her aggressive, dramatic, and increasingly ridiculous tactics have not deceived the community. Instead, they have alienated voters who are fed up with the show and want real change as the FBI probe looms and Henyard's popularity is declining. As the election approaches and she faces innumerable questions, her campaign has turned into a desperate scramble for survival. Perhaps reverse the trend, or is this the last step in what is likely to be a catastrophic collapse? As the election date draws near, the stakes are higher than ever. Will Henyard be able to regain the support of her former supporters, or will she lose in one of the most spectacular political upsets in recent history? Without a doubt, this race will be a thrilling journey with plenty of twists and turns and enough drama to make history stick to you. The most spectacular and tumultuous political race in recent memory is about to begin. As the November election approaches and her campaign has fallen into utter chaos, Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed supermayor of Dunn, Illinois, is fine to continue in her role. Once a powerful figure, Henyard is now in the midst of a full-blown crisis, with her approval rating falling to a pitiful single-digit percentage, an FBI investigation, a potentially disastrous eviction lawsuit, and mounting indignation from the very residents who once supported her. Her leadership, which was previously hailed as powerful and decisive, has now been shown as a flimsy facade, forcing her to fight for her life. One of the most notorious events during her term was the yearly turkey distribution held right before Thanksgiving, which was widely denounced as a desperate and unscrupulous attempt to divert attention from the township's terrible financial circumstances. The turkey giveaway, which was meant to show Henyard as a kind leader, instead came off as a flimsy political ploy that only made the public's dislike of her worse. However, this is only the beginning of her. Backdoor deals, dishonest methods, and increasingly weird stunts are all part of the troubled Henyard re-election campaign, which is being closely watched by local politicians and activists. The attempt by Christopher Gonzalez Henyard to force important decisions through without adhering to the correct protocols has been made public. It's evident from Gonzalez's revelations that Henyard's leadership is now more desperate as she tries to exert authority more and more, even going so far as to bend the laws to her will. About maintaining power rather than serving the people, every move appears to be more intended to maintain public attention than to deal with the town's actual problems. Her aggressive, dramatic, and increasingly ridiculous tactics have not deceived the community. Instead, They have alienated voters who are fed up with the show and want real change as the FBI probe looms and Han's popularity is declining. As the election approaches and she faces innumerable questions, her campaign has turned into a desperate scramble for survival. Perhaps reverse the trend, or is this the last step in what is likely to be a catastrophic collapse? As the election date draws near, the stakes are higher than ever. Will Henyard be able to regain the support of her former supporters, or will she lose in one of the most spectacular political upsets in recent history? Without a doubt, this race will be a thrilling journey with plenty of twists and turns and enough drama to make history stick to you.
Those entities, as we know, can take anywhere from 2 months to 5.
Especially during one of the worst winter storms the town has ever experienced, when citizens were attempting to cross dangerous frozen streets. Tiffany Henyard's leadership in Dalton, Illinois, has turned into a classic example of failure, negligence, and unfulfilled promises. Henyard seemed more concerned with maintaining her social media presence than with handling the urgent situation. This was not only a lack of leadership, it was a total abdication of duty, leaving constituents in dangerous situations and facing a startling and unsettling demonstration of disregard for their safety. Well-being, as if this weren't bad enough, the town's financial issues have gotten worse during Hannah's administration. There have been accusations of poor management, including that Hannah has further depleted taxpayer monies used to support his political and personal interests. Local businesses have also felt the pressure of her governance, and numerous business people have publicly condemned her obstructionist tactics that have made it practically impossible for them to grow their operations or secure permits. Local trucking business owner Lawrence Gardner openly discussed how in a harsh critique, he compared her to Nino Brown, the notorious drug kingpin from New Jack City, drawing a chilling parallel between her coercive behavior and criminal intimidation for many. This wasn't just bad leadership, it was a deliberate attempt to bully and manipulate local businesses for political gain. The public's outrage reached a boiling point as residents voiced their growing discontent with the administration's continued dysfunction. "This is embarrassing," for one frustrated resident declared during a public meeting, echoing the feelings of numerous others who felt deceived by Hannah's behavior. The rage was evident, and the sense of betrayal grew as more individuals voiced their helplessness in a community where their needs and worries had been disregarded. Speaking on behalf of numerous residents, one accused Henyard of being power-hungry, implying that she was more concerned with using the town's resources to further her political ambitions than with the welfare of the community. Charges that her leap had pushed Dalton to the edge of his comfort zone added to the growing animosity. With the town on the verge of collapse due to financial mismanagement, negligence, and an inability to meet basic community requirements, Hannah's hold on power is obviously waning, but she is adamant about keeping it no matter the cost. Her refusal to resign in the face of growing criticism and public outcry has only strengthened the impression that she will stop at nothing to hold on to power, even if it means further alienating the very people she was elected to represent. Despite her continuous attempts to do so, her leadership is cracking. Growing more obvious every day, Dalton's future under her leadership is looking more and more unclear. What began as a bright political career has now turned into a nasty, polarizing battle for survival. It remains to be seen whether Henyard can maintain any kind of support in the face of growing criticism. The people of Dalton are tired and appear to have reached the point where they can no longer tolerate the pressure. To make matters worse, two town trustees, Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle, failed to attend a crucial meeting, further complicating Henyard's already precarious position without enough board members. This situation highlighted the dysfunction that has come to define Henyard's leadership, as her inability to maintain control over her own team further damaged her reputation. However, it's not just local grievances that are threatening her hold on power. An ongoing FBI investigation into her re-election campaign has cast a dark shadow over her already troubled administration. Important financial data from both Dalton and Thoron Township have been subpoenaed by federal authorities, including documents pertaining to. Despite her strong denials of any wrongdoing, the investigation into dubious contracts and claims of misappropriation of public funds is still underway, raising major questions about her political future and her ability to withstand the increasing judicial pressure on her. The community has grown increasingly irate with her leadership, which has been characterized by obvious financial irregularities. And this election is not just a battle for another term. It is a desperate attempt to maintain power and evade possible criminal charges that could result from the investigation of the Dalton situation. Improper handling residents are now furious, disillusioned, and ready for change as a result of governmental dysfunction and failed promises. The severity of the issue was reflected in the cries for reform that had turned into a rallying cry as a community faced a leadership crisis. A YouTube user commented on CEG, pointing out that Henyard had only won her most recent election by a small margin of a few hundred votes. Another comment highlighted the disgrace suffered by the Illinois election, highlighting how vulnerable her position is and how easy she may be ousted if enough voters show up this time. Officials are wondering how a scandal-plagued person was able to hold onto office in the first place. This critique highlights the political system's structural weaknesses that allowed Henyard to rise to power in spite of several indications of her incapacity and dubious behavior. The real question on many minds is how things got to be in such chaos, as both locals and political observers attempt to comprehend how things could have gotten so bad. The combination of political dysfunction, financial mismanagement, and the FBI investigation has created a perfect storm. Storm for Henyard, the town is getting ready to vote, and the only thing that is certain is that Hannah's time in office may end abruptly and dramatically. The people of Dalton are ready for change. Many feel betrayed by the mayor's leadership, and they are determined to make their voices heard as they head into the election. The election is quickly approaching, and it is evident that this is her last chance to avoid both political extinction and criminal accountability. The atmosphere in Dalton is one of frustration and urgency, and with reform being demanded at every turn, the future of her political career is in jeopardy. But one thing is certain, Tiffany Henyard's days of unchecked rule are coming to an end. The town is at a crossroads, and its future rests on whether or not the people can regain their voice in the face of this political scandal. Whether or not they are successful in ousting her from office will depend on voter turnout, public awareness, and the ongoing legal battle surrounding her.
Financial mismanagement, political dysfunction, and the FBI investigation has...
Despite the expanding legal issues, the deteriorating financial crisis, and the growing popular distaste for Tiffany Henyard's leadership, the possibility that she will be reelected is increasing. Her inconsistent campaign tactics, which have increased the scandal surrounding her administration, and her flagrant contempt for the concerns of her constituents highlight this grim reality. What was once a simple political contest has now turned into a... Dalton is having serious financial difficulties, such as not being able to pay basic expenses and managing crucial operations, and she is facing a referendum on her entire term as mayor with the stakes higher than ever. Henyard's erstwhile ally called the scenario a rock in a hard place, highlighting her and her partner Kyle Wood's ongoing eviction lawsuit for unpaid rent. While this may seem like a small matter, it actually shows a much more serious and worrisome issue. Beyond financial crisis and public indignation, Hannah's steadfast reluctance to accept blame or be held accountable for her acts or leadership style has become more chaotic and self-serving, characterized by an aggressive approach to anyone who opposes her authority. Numerous people have attacked her leadership for being autocratic, including former trustee Kate Beller, who has charged that Henyard has used intimidation to suppress resistance. It has been stated that she targeted political opponents with the police department, and Robert Collins, the former police head, purportedly confirmed that he was told to target particular people. Her increasing employment of a large security detail, which has become a regular occurrence, further illustrates the mayor's disdain for the welfare of the residents and presents an uncomfortable image of someone more interested in retaining power than in governing for the benefit of the town. Apart from the disorder, poor leadership, and corruption that have characterized Han's tenure in power, what was once thought to be a bright political future is now a life-or-death battle for survival. Although it is unclear if Henyard can handle the storm that is encircling her or if the town will eventually hold her responsible, the likelihood of her political and personal demise increases daily. In a small town already struggling financially, the security detail, a mainstay in her administration, is said to have cost the community more than $1 million. Dalton's limited resources, together with Henyard's, it's becoming more and more obvious that Dalton is calling for a new direction, one that would address the public's growing dissatisfaction with her leadership, which has been exacerbated by her careless spending and lack of responsibility. Apart from the disorder, poor leadership, and corruption that have characterized Han's tenure in power, what was once thought to be a bright political future is now a life-or-death battle for survival. Although it is unclear if Henyard can handle the storm that is encircling her or if the town will eventually hold her responsible, the likelihood of her political and personal demise increases daily.
The meeting.
We just want to get some responsible adults.
The irony of Tiffany Henyard's situation is indisputable. Despite her repeated attempts to project an image of herself as a strong and capable leader, her actions have only served to undermine her credibility and harm her political standing in Dalton. What once appeared to be a promising leadership role has now turned into a deeply troubling saga marked by extravagant spending, legal disputes, and a growing distance between the mayor and the very residents she was elected to serve. Her leadership, which was once seen as full of potential, is now under siege, and the gap between her self-image as a strong, capable mayor and it is evident how tough her rule is. Hannah's failure to provide for the community's basic needs has further destabilized Dalton, a town already struggling financially. Reports of dubious contracts and a protracted legal battle have surfaced, which has increased public skepticism as the town struggles. An overpowering determination to hold onto power at all costs, poor decision-making, and poor management have all contributed to Hannah's administration's growing perceived inefficiency. This is one of the most notable differences in Hannah's re-election campaign and eviction lawsuit over overdue rent demonstrate her leadership. As the public watches in disbelief as their mayor's personal and professional lives collide in increasingly dramatic and public ways, the disconnect between her carefully constructed persona as an effective, competent leader and the reality of a mayor who cannot even manage her own finances has deepened a sense of disillusionment among the public. How can someone who cannot handle her own affairs be trusted to lead an entire community? Unquestionably, her leadership has lost credibility, and legal issues have made matters worse. However, perhaps the biggest blow to her authority was when a Cook County court invalidated her appointment of Michael Smith as executive assistant to the special counsel. This decision was not just a small setback, it was a major blow to Hannah's already precarious political standing. The court's decision to interfere with her appointments revealed a lack of control over important aspects of her administration and strengthened the growing perception that her decisions made were not her own. Were under investigation by the legal system and the general public. The decision, together with other upturned staffing choices, points to a more widespread breakdown in her legitimacy and authority. It is evident from public scrutiny and judicial action that the mayor's choices are being routinely contested and weakened. Hannah's lack of political savvy has been exposed by the court reversals and heightened public scrutiny. These recurring losses have only strengthened the impression that her leadership is feeble and unable to maintain control. Becomes more tenuous, her leadership style was formerly seen as fearless and decisive, but it is now seen as motivated more by self-interest than by a sincere desire to ensure the welfare of Dalton's tenants. A once promising political career is now devolving into a frantic struggle for survival as the public observes a leader's collapse whose actions have left the town in peril. In addition to the financial mismanagement and legal disputes, the fallout from her leadership is also manifesting in the citizens' increasing mistrust, as many now see her as a symbol of As the demand keeps increasing, poor management and incompetence, people who formerly trusted her leadership are now doubting if she can continue to serve them, and many are growing more and more irritated with her inability to meet their fundamental demands. Her erratic, self-serving political maneuvers and disdain for the interests of the public, it is increasingly clear that she is more concerned with holding on to power than with stepping down or confronting the problems, as evidenced by her persistent attempts to do so. A widening rift within the local government trustees has also seriously weakened the leadership of Dalton Henyard. Among other things, Christopher Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle have actively attempted to thwart her attempts to hold on to power. These two trustees in particular have purposefully prevented Henyard from obtaining a quorum for meetings, which has seriously disrupted the township's operations. This strategy, which involved postponing meetings until important deadlines had passed, signals a deliberate challenge to her authority and makes it abundantly evident that Additionally, Hannah's decision to appoint someone she handpicked to fill a vacant trustee position has further exacerbated divisions within the township board and solidified the idea that her leadership is more about personal and local gain than effective leadership. This has further deepened the rift within the town's political structure, causing even her closest allies to distance themselves from her. These political ploys, along with the growing number of court reversals, have brought attention to the growing dysfunction under her administration. What was once a promising political career now appears to be falling apart due to political infighting and poor management, and is becoming increasingly apparent that she has lost the trust of important officials within her own government. The situation has become so chaotic that even the most basic functions of local government are now in jeopardy. The township board's repeated failure to meet and conduct business highlights the extent of Dalton's dilemma. The town of Dalton is now dealing with the fallout from a leadership that seems incapable of functioning cohesively. The inability to reach a quorum and the lack of cooperation among board members signal a breakdown of the governance structure, revealing that the town's political system has become bogged down by infighting and dysfunction. These failures, which have become increasingly common under Henyard's leadership, paint a grim picture of a mayor who is unable to manage even the most basic elements of governance. The growing dysfunction within the township board reflects larger issues within the town. Hannah's management. As the situation worsens, it is becoming more evident that the township of Dalton is having difficulty managing the most basic functions of government.